Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Might and Magic VII. Now, I've said already that this next episode coming up is going to be a strange one, and that it definitely is going to be. But before I get into it, I'd like to tell you a story from my childhood. You see, when I was a kid, my mom used to love watching these cooking shows on TV. And I wasn't a huge fan of them myself, but I would occasionally end up watching them anyway because due to the way the TV schedules worked, they were often before shows that I wanted to watch, like, The Simpsons. So often I'd catch, like the second half of them, for example. And there was always something about those cooking shows that struck me as odd. I think the one that I remember the most, I think it might have been my mom's favorite, was I think the chef was named Emerald something. Anyway, what I found interesting about the shows was, like, they started out in a normal kind of way. The chef talks about what they're going to make. They show you the ingredients they're going to use. There's a bit of banter with the audience, because usually often there's a live audience watching them, and then they start actually making the thing. They go through the prep, and you see all of that, and eventually the time comes to put, the thing in the oven or wherever it is that the bulk of the actual cooking is going to take place. And without fail, immediately after doing that, the show will then transition to a fully completed version of that meal. And I always found that odd, that you're just completely skipping what is often the longest part of the cooking process. Now, I understand why they do it, because you might have something in the oven for the better part of an hour, and the chances are not too many people would be interested in watching a TV show that was just 45 minutes of a dude just sitting there staring at his oven. So I realized that it was necessary for the shows to work, but still, I found that to be just interesting, the way it just instantly cuts to the final version of the thing being made. So yeah, that's my story. Now, I know what you're probably wondering. You're wondering why I told you the story. What does it have to do with Might and Magic VI? What does it have to do with anything? Is it relevant in any conceivable way? Or have I just wasted your time? Well, if you want answers to that, I would suggest watching the rest of the video. I can't promise anything, but it may or may not make more sense as we get deeper into things. So now I'm gonna talk about this game and what's going on. At the end of the last video, we killed this dragon, and I very coyly, without giving you the important details, I simply told you that killing this dragon was a very important thing. And now I'm going to tell you exactly why this dragon is important. No more beating about the bush. Some of you may have guessed. Some of you may already know from having played this game before. But the reason dragons and other high-level enemies are important is because they are capable of giving you any random loot item in the game, including the rare, valuable, and powerful artifacts and relics. And I mentioned, I think multiple times right now, one of my goals for this series, same as Might and Magic VI, was to collect as many artifacts and relics as I could, which means I need to find 13 of them through random loot, and then if the game gives me anything through scripted chests that contain relics, or quests, or challenges that give you artifacts, those would go on top of that. But at a minimum, I would need to find the 13 from random loot first, because anything we find in a scripted way would count against our limit, even if we were going to find it anyway. So what does this dragon have to do with that? You might be saying, hey, hang on, that doesn't add up. You said you want 13 through random loot. There's only one red dragon here. Yeah, you'll get one, but why all this trouble just for one artifact or relic? You know, you spent an hour and a half killing this dragon with a party that had only 2 people with bows, and they were just the ordinary crappy crossbows. Why would you do that? And the answer to that is, this will come as a shock to you who, you might not even believe me when I first say this, but trust me, it is true. This one dragon will give us not just one artifact or relic, but he will give us all 13. And in order to show you why that is the case, I need to demonstrate something. I'm just gonna move my laptop a little bit, make things more comfortable. By the way, if you go to my save game setup, you'll see I have 2 extra save games here, both backups of this file, the post-dragon file. I mentioned at the end of the fight that I'm not going to be looting this dragon corpse. I need the dragon corpse to be around, and these extra 2 files are there because in case something dumb happens, like I loot the dragon corpse and save the game for some reason, I wanted 2 extras as, insurance against any potential lapses in sanity that I might have. Right, so now, as I said, I want to make a demonstration of something. And I'm going to say straight up, I don't know how long this demonstration will take, because there is going to be some randomness involved. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get into it, and I will explain the implications of it afterwards. Right, so let's start. First thing I want to point out is you notice it said right below, we got an artifact. I'm not going to show you what artifact it was, just note, and you can rewind the screen if you missed it, but it did say that we found some amount of gold and an artifact. That's not the thing. There are 2 things that I wanted to show you. That is actually not the thing that I expected would happen first. But it did. So that's the first thing. And that thing I had kind of already told you, so showing you wasn't really necessary. But, always better to show you. There's one other thing, and I'm gonna keep doing this until it happens. We may find other artifacts or relics while I keep waiting for this other thing to happen. It just happened. What you'll notice, and again, if you missed it, you can rewind the video a little bit, is that we looted the dragon corpse, we got an item, in this case I think it was a sword of some kind, but the dragon corpse remained, meaning it can be looted again. In fact, the same thing happened twice in a row, which is a rare occurrence. But I guess it's nice that it happened again, because in case you missed it the first time, you can see it again. Is that due to what is known as the multi-looting glitch, you can sometimes loot the same corpse twice, and some of you may have already seen where this is going, But if not, I'm just gonna come out and say it. This can be exploited if you save right after killing a high-level creature, but before you loot the corpse. If you save right next to the corpse, you can loot it over and over again, and wait for the multi-loot glitch to trigger, and every time the multi-loot glitch triggers, that's essentially a free item that you can just keep, and the dragon corpse will be there for you to loot it again. Now, the reason these two things are so important is that because multi-looting exists, and because this dragon corpse can give us artifacts and relics, if we combine those two, surely you've come to this conclusion already, but I'm gonna say it, if we combine those two, we can use this one dragon corpse to get all of the 13 random artifacts and relics that we want. That's the good news. And it's not just good news, it's amazing news. We can check off this very difficult, very tricky objective essentially at the start of the game. We're still on the tutorial island, and we'll be able to do this. That's the good news. The more bad news maybe, but the more challenging bit of news is that it may take a very, very long time. So before I did anything else, I did some tests. I got out a notebook. I'm just gonna bring it up here, and on that notebook I basically looted this dragon corpse a bunch of times, and I saw how often the multi-looting glitch triggers, and I saw how often the dragon pays out with an artifact or relic. And I don't have a huge sample size. It's n of 27 for both of those, because this notebook only had 27 lines in its pages. But that's good enough to give me at least a kind of idea about this. So based on these numbers, the multi-looting, which is clicking on this dragon or pressing spacebar and getting loot but the dragon corpse remaining, so the rate of that happening was approximately 1 in every 10. So like you'd have about a 10% chance every time you clicked on this dragon that the multi-looting glitch would trigger. Now for relics and artifacts, again according to my numbers, what I found was that approximately 1 in every 25 attempts to loot this dragon will result in an artifact or a relic. And of course, we're not interested in either of those things happening in isolation. Like, yeah, if I multi-loot a good ring or something, I can keep it. But what I really want is to multi-loot artifacts. That way I get an artifact, and I can keep looting this dragon looking for more artifacts. So the important probability is, what is the chance of me multi-looting an artifact from this dragon? And of course, for that to happen, we, number one, need to successfully pass the multi-looting odds, and then we need to successfully pass the 1 in 25 relic/artifact odds. And if you combine those two, it's a simple multiplication. You end up with like 1 out of 10 multiplied by 1 out of 25, which gives you 1 out of 250. Which is, assuming my numbers are accurate, and there definitely is some margin of error, but assuming it's in generally the right ballpark, you can expect that every time you attempt to loot this dragon, there is approximately a 1 in 250 chance that you will multi-loot an artifact from it. Now, you might be dismayed at how low those odds are, but here's the thing. If you perform it correctly, you can do this You can loot this dragon many times very quickly, and I'm going to show you my method for doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to load the game, and the game that I'm loading is, you can go up and down, scrolling through your list of saved games. It's very important that it be at this position in the scroll list, and you'll see why in a second. So I'm just going to load this. I'm going to loot this dragon, and you'll see we didn't get a multi-loot or an artifact or a relic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load the game, and as you can see, my cursor is already over the load game button. I click on load game, and because the save game was at that point in the scroll position, I'm able to immediately, without having to move my cursor at all, go back and loot this dragon again. So I can keep doing this with a lot of speed. And this is the fastest way, I think. See, we got the multi-looting, but it wasn't an artifact or relic, it was just a helm. This is the fastest way to get many attempts at looting this dragon in a short amount of time. But no matter how fast you are, it'll take a long time for you to get all 13 of your artifacts and relics. There are two other things to consider. And the first one is kind of a mathematical point, but it's an important one. So I said you have an approximately 1 in 250 chance of getting the multi-looting and the relic and artifact happening at the same time. And this is something you might intuitively understand, but it's important to keep it in the forefront of your mind as you're engaging in this process, is that just because the odds are 1 in 250, it doesn't mean that if you do it 250 times, you're guaranteed for it to happen. And you already intuitively know why this is true. For example, you know that if you have a fair coin, if you flip it, you have a 1 in 2 chance of it being heads or tails. But you also know that you can very easily flip a coin twice and not get a single heads. You can in fact flip it a bunch of times and not see a single heads, even if it was a fair coin, and even if it was a 1 in 2 chance every single time. The same logic applies here. You can do it a whole bunch of times, and like 250 is just a good mental benchmark because it's like the inverse of the probability. But you can do it that many times and still not get the result you're after. And the probability is approximately 36%. So just over a 1 in 3 chance that you'll do this thing 250 times and not multi-loot an artifact or relic. So just bear that in mind, that if you're engaging in this process, be prepared to spend a lot of time doing it. Be prepared for long dry spells. Of course, the fact that you have a 36% chance that you'll get nothing is balanced out by the fact that there is also a chance that if you do it 250 times, you'll multi-loot multiple artifacts, right? So overall it balances out, but there will always be periods where you are just not getting the kind of luck that you want. And whenever you're engaging in a long, tedious process like this, it's important to have realistic assumptions about what the odds of success are and how long it might take, because otherwise the frustration will really really start getting to you. The other thing to keep in mind is the number I've given you, 1 in 250. That's the probability of multi-looting any artifact or relic, like out of the entire list. One additional problem is that the game might give you an artifact that you won't be able to use, either because it doesn't fit the alignment that your party will eventually get to, or because it just doesn't, like, it's a weapon that doesn't fit any of the builds that you're planning for any of your characters. Or maybe it's just something that you technically can use, but because you think it's a garbage artifact, you just don't want to use it. So if you start rejecting some artifacts, right, and if you start being more selective, then that 1 over 250 number becomes even lower. Like, you then, it's not just a chance of multi-looting an artifact, it becomes the chance of multi-looting an artifact which is on your list of artifacts that are acceptable. And again, this is intuitive, right? The more picky you're being in just about any aspect of life, the harder it will be to find the thing that you're looking for, right? The more criteria the thing has to pass before it's acceptable to you, right? The more hoops it has to jump through. So that's all about that. Now, with all that said, you might be thinking, wow, this is going to be one long, long video, because Ali is now going to sit here and click on this dragon thousands and thousands of times to get the 13 artifacts and relics that he needs. And fortunately for you, that is not going to happen. And in order to segue into where this video is going to go next, let me draw your attention. Recall the story that I told you right at the beginning of the video about the cooking shows that my mom used to love so much. And some of you will already see where this is going, but remember how I mentioned that they'll talk about, you know, the ingredients they're using, the method, like what they're gonna make, and then once they put the thing into the oven, it cuts straight to the finished meal? Well, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. You see, I was actually pretty careful when I was recording not to scroll too far down, because I didn't want to show any of these extra saves. And just from the title of this video, you can guess what a save that says artifacts done on a screen where the dragon corpse is no longer there. You can guess as to what that might signify. But before I load this save, I want to talk a little bit more about my process and about what these two other saves mean. So, well, first of all, this is kind of obvious. I couldn't fit the whole word in, but this is a backup of this save, because this is a very important save that I did not want to lose. But what is a holding save? And that's a weird way to phrase it, but I couldn't think of a better way. Is while I was multi-looting this dragon, occasionally I would multi-loot an artifact or relic, but because the identify item skill of my only party member who has that skill is only at level 1, it wasn't high enough to identify artifacts or relics. So I wasn't sure whether it would be something that is part of my build. So what I needed to do was actually to run all the way to town, to run all the way to town to go to the relevant shop, either the magic shop, the weapon shop, or the armor shop, and then get it identified there, and then see whether I needed it or not. The reason I made an extra save for that is because I wanted to hold the artifact in a slot that wasn't any of these. like I didn't want to overwrite these, but I wanted to hold it in place while I was deciding whether it was a suitable one or not. And if it was a suitable one, then I would keep it, and then I would update these saves. If it wasn't a suitable one, then with a heavy heart, I would just load up this save without overriding it with this, and we would lose that artifact, and we'd just move on to the next one. So that's what a holding save is. Now, so one other save I wanted to talk about, which is this one titled Limit Testing, and this one is just something I did for my own personal satisfaction. So you know, I've been telling you that there's a limit of 13 random artifacts or relics, and I already knew this would be the case, but I just wanted to do extra testing to make sure that it was indeed 13. And so for this one, I just multi-looted 13 artifacts, not caring about what they were, just keeping any multi-looted artifacts or relics that I got. And after I got to 13, I kept looting this dragon more, with the thinking being that if this is the limit, then I should see no more artifacts or relics after this point. And indeed, that was the case. No more artifacts or relics materialized once I had hit the limit of 13. So, excuse me, that's everything I wanted to talk about my method. I'm about to load the save, but before I do, if you'll excuse me, I just need to get my bottle of water. I've been talking for a while, my throat's getting a bit dry, so just give me a moment. Alright, that wasn't too long. I'm back. Nice drink of water. I do love water quite a lot. Okay, so now I'm gonna load this save game. We're gonna go through the artifacts that I found. We're gonna go through them in the order that I found them. Now, the first one is something that's gonna be in Serena's inventory. As you can... Okay, one other thing I should mention. I didn't just keep the artifacts and relics. I also, as I was multi-looting other random items, I may have kept some of those as well. But you know what? I'm not gonna make any apologies for that. I want my party to be overpowered, and I'm totally okay with exploiting this glitch to do that. Alright, so the first artifact I found was the Glory Shield. Let's talk about what it does. I won't read the descriptions because I don't think my throat would survive that. I'll just talk about what they do. So it's off spirit magic, and it boosts your shield skill, but you lose some body resistance and mind resistance. I don't care too much about losing resistances. I do like the spirit magic boost. The shield skill bonus is nice as well, but I mainly like it because of the spirit magic bonus that we're getting, and that's why it's in Serena's inventory. She's our cleric. She will be our character who has spirit magic. Alright, that's artifact number 1, Glory Shield. Number 2... Wait, hang on.
Sorry, can't help.
Oh, okay. See, this is actually the last one that I found. It's meant to be in...
I have no idea.
It's meant to be in Zoltan's inventory, but I guess I just didn't save after I identified it and concluded that I wanted to keep it. But we'll keep it there for now, and you know what? I'd go and identify it at the end. It'll be fun. We'll finally leave this cave. Okay. So, oh yeah, I was in your inventory, Zoltan. No, Roderick. I may have called him Roderick instead. You know what? Let's focus on one thing at a time. Let's focus on the artifacts. The second one I found was this. the plate mail Yoruba. And I love it because it's golden, it just looks so awesome. But more importantly, it does some cool things. You're immune to disease, insanity, paralysis, poison, sleep, and stone. That might be every status effect other than weak and death and eradication. So it's a pretty damn good one. One fun fact, it's called Yoruba, and pretty sure that's the name of an ethnic group in Nigeria, and also the name of the language they speak, or one of the languages they speak anyway, because there are a lot of languages in that part of the world, a very multilingual region. So that's a cool little thing, because in fantasy games, it's like the idea is that it's another world, it's an escape from our reality. But the people who craft fantasy worlds often draw inspiration from things in our actual world. So that was a cool little tidbit. So that was number 2, the plate mail Yoruba. Number 3 was the longbow Ulysses. What does it do? A lot of accuracy and some water damage. So pretty good. Pretty darn good. Unfortunately, I guess a lot of skills are different, but bows in particular have gotten a bit of a debuff, because in Might and Magic VI, our entire party could become master in bow, meaning they were getting all the bonuses, the recovery time, shooting 2 arrows with every attack. In this game, not every character will be able to do that, unless you specifically make a party entirely of archers and rangers, and if you did that, you'd be missing out on a lot of other things. So yeah, even though we have this artifact bow, we won't be able to use it to its full potential because we won't have a grandmaster in bow, but it will still serve us very well. So that was number 3, the longbow Ulysses. Number 4 was the axe called Splitter. And let's see what it does. Explosive impact. Excuse me. Yeah, explosive impact and fire resistance. I'll be honest, I've never actually had this in any of my playthroughs of this game. So I don't actually know what explosive impact means for a melee weapon. I know what it means for a ranged weapon from the previous game with, I think, the artifact Percival and Bows of Carnage. We had a couple of those. It'll be a lot of fun to see what this means for a melee weapon. I'm really, really curious about that. So that's number 4, the one-handed axe Splitter. Number 5 is also in Zoltan's inventory. That is the crossbow Anya Selvig. Oh, by the way, one thing that I haven't been specifically saying, but which you've probably noticed if you've been reading the item types, is that the relics come with big bonuses but a penalty. Artifacts come with a whole bunch of more moderate bonuses. So that's the big difference between artifacts and relics. So number 5 is the relic crossbow Anya Selvig, which again gives us a whole bunch of accuracy, bonus to our bow skill, but we lose armor class, which I'm not too worried about. I do like the accuracy bonus, and even more accuracy from bonus to your bow skill, so that's going to be a really good one. Number 6 is the relic crown, the Phynaxian crown. Now what does it do? It's off fire magic, so it boosts our fire magic by 50%. Gives us water resistance, gives us personality, which unfortunately not going to be useful on this character, I don't think. And we lose armor class, which kind of a bummer, but we'll get over it. We'll get over it. The bonus is definitely worth it, though. So this was number 6. the Phynaxian crown. Number 7 is in Serena's inventory, the Governor's armor. And what this does is half damage from missile attacks. Pretty good. It's an artifact. And plus 10 to all statistics, which is basically the off the gods effect. So again, pretty damn good. Pretty good. I like this one a lot. Although, unfortunately, I think it has the same graphic as a normal chainmail. So it... bit... disappointed that they didn't give it something special. Like, I think this also has the same graphic as a regular plate mail, but it's colored gold, and the regular plate mail is, I think, just steel or whatever it's made out of. Alright, so that was number 7, the Governor's armor. Number 8... yeah. Number 8 is the 7 League boots. Speed plus 40, off water magic. Brilliant, brilliant item. And you can see why it's in the inventory of our character who will eventually be getting all the elemental magic. So yeah, just this is one of the ones I was happiest to find just because of how cool it is. Really, really good item. So that was number 8. The artifact 7 League boots. Number 9. Now, this one actually scared the hell out of me when we found it, and I'll tell you why. It is Taladon's helm. So one thing I did whenever I multi-looted an artifact or relic, like I made the holding save, but before I ran to town, what I would do is I would see if anyone in my party could equip it. So I found it in Zoltan's inventory because he's the first one.
I can't use
I
that.
tried it on him. It's like he can't use it. I tried it on
I can't use
him.
that.
He can't use it. Tried it on her.
Not a chance.
She can't use it, and then
I can't use that.
she couldn't use it. Obviously, when I found it, it was unidentified. So none of them could use it. That told me that there was an alignment restriction on this. And I'm like, oh no. It looks like such a cool helmet, but if it has an alignment restriction, then it's probably evil, right? I made that judgment based on how it looks. Like, it's kind of sharp looking almost, and the green almost makes it seem reptilian in a way. I'm like, we're gonna find out that we can't use it, and I almost didn't even go back to town to identify it. I almost just left it there, but I'm like, you know what, let's at least see what it is, because I don't remember what this item is. So I went back to town, identified it, and much to my surprise, turned out that the alignment restriction is that you've got to be good, which is, spoiler alert, what I'm gonna be building my party towards. And let's see what it does. Off light magic, so that's nice. A personality plus 50, which is gonna help you. Might plus 15. Sorry, personality plus 15, might plus 15. That's gonna help you. Luck minus 40, I don't really care about. So yeah, another wonderful, wonderful item. The next one, immediately after that, the Flail Justice, another alignment restricted item. Now this one again scared the hell out of me because like I look at it and it's got like a skull with glowing eyes, and yeah, it's golden, which I guess is kind of a good and red, which maybe is associated with good, I don't know, but I'm like, I'm not sure if it's good. Like, golden is nice, but then it's got this weird face on it. Again, I nervously took it back to town to identify it, and lo and behold, the alignment restriction is that you've got to be good. Now, what does it do? It is undead slaying, which means double damage to undead, off mind magic, and off body magic. So, yeah, you can't really ask for a better weapon for a character like this. The only downside, of course, is that it's got minus 40 speed, but it's okay. We'll find a way to we'll find a way to counteract that. Of course, the downside is that because it has the alignment restriction, we can't use it until we become good. So for now, I won't be talking about all the non-artifacts and relics that I multi-looted, but I will be mentioning them in cases like this where it's relevant. So that, like, for now, I also kept this flail that I multi-looted as well, the Vampiric Supreme Flail, which drains HP, which I think is a pretty nice weapon to be using in the interim. But yeah, so this was items 9 and 10 that we found, the relic Teledon's Helm, and the relic Justice. Number 11 was an interesting find, like a roller coaster of emotions. So before I found this item, let me tell you that before I found this, the Duelist Blade of the Dragon. And if you watched my MM6 playthrough, you know how much I love Weapons of the Dragon because of the enchantment they have, but also because of how rare they are. So I found this, and I'm like, okay, surely this is going to be your sword. Again, I'm going to be building him as a dual wielder, swords and axes. I'm like, surely this is going to be your sword. Nothing could possibly replace it. And in fact, if I get an artifact sword, I'll not keep it because I'll want something else that I'll actually use. But at some point I multi-looted this item. And I'm like, okay, before I throw it away, let's go and see what it does. So I went and looked at it and nearly fell out of my chair when I saw that this artifact sword called Wallace gives you a +10 bonus to Arms Master. The reason that is important is, well, let's take a look at what the Arms Master skill does. The yellow highlighted Grandmaster means we can attain that after we're promoted. So at normal, we reduce recovery time for all melee weapons. At expert, we add to our attack bonus. At master, we add to our damage. And Grandmaster doubles all of these bonuses. That's right. This gives you an extra +10 after your Grandmaster, an extra +10 to all of those doubled bonuses. So +20 damage, +20 attack rating. The recovery time bonus is a little bit more funky, but that's good to have as well. And just for fun, we get 40 personality, which is useless on him, but nice to have, I guess. So I think this was the only sword out of the list of artifacts or relics that I would have kept in place of this Duelist Blade of the Dragon. So I was really, really lucky to find this. And it's called Wallace, which is a person's name. I'm not sure what it's about, but it makes me think of William Wallace, especially because the sword, like the description talks about rebels and rabble-rousers. And that, I think, is a fair way to describe William Wallace. Alright, so that was number 11, the artifact sword Wallace. Number 12 is in your inventory, the Titan's Belt, the relic. And this one I considered not keeping, but I was tired. I'm like, we're almost done. Let's just keep anything. We don't need a min-max. And it gives might +75, speed -40. Why is this in her inventory? Well, I'm like, I don't want to give a -40 speed penalty to any of these guys. So let me give it to the person who also has an artifact that's giving her +40 speed. So at least it'll get cancelled out, and then the +75 strength means that she will be hitting like a truck with her staff, just bashing people on the head with a stick. So yeah, that was number 12, the relic belt, the Titan's Belt. And The last one is one
I have no idea.
that we haven't identified it, and just to show you,
You'll have to get rid of something first. Well, I can't do everything.
she doesn't have a high enough ID item skill to be able to identify it. So I already know what this is, but let's go. Oh, and Margaret is gonna warn us again that it isn't wise to enter the cave, even though she was with us when I spent an hour and a half killing the dragon. So she should know that the dragon is dead, but I don't know, maybe she was just, you know, on her phone checking Facebook the entire time. You know how it is. Alright, so now she's gonna tell us that we're about to enter the armor shop, which should be self-explanatory.
See anything you want?
What the shop is about. And here I'm just gonna identify it. This is Herrick's leather.
Thanks a lot.
Let's see what this does quickly. Stealing +5, disarm +5. These are both skills that you can become Grandmaster in. With disarm, once you're Grandmaster and it's 100%, having more skill points doesn't really matter. Stealing, I guess, does matter, although I don't think we're going to be stealing. But still, for role-playing purposes, I think it's nice to have these skills, I guess. What else it does? It's a relic, so it has a penalty. All resist -50, which is kind of bad. Luck +50 is kind of nice. Water walking is nice, but irrelevant if only one member of the party has it, because then the others will still be taking the damage and dying. Alright. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna walk... Well, I guess before I walk back, let's look at the other stuff that we found. I already showed you some of it. I showed you this sword, I showed you this flail. Show you some of the other cool items. Then we'll start wrapping this video up. Got Paladin Boots of the Gods. This is the best tier of boot, and probably the best enchantment that it could get. And I actually found 3 of these. I got really lucky with it. I was really happy about that. So Paladin Boots of the Gods, that's going to be nice. Mogred Gauntlets of the Gods. This is the highest tier of gauntlets, so again, a really nice thing to pick up. Sun Amulet of Life, some hit points, hit point regen. Glorious Cloak of the Gods, so that, he's going to be a very godly character soon once we equip this gear on him. So that's the extra stuff we found for you. For you, we found Exquisite Long Dagger of Infernos, so extra fire damage. Exquisite Long Dagger of Thunderbolts. This is the highest tier of dagger. The reason I have 2 of those is because once we're expert in dagger, we can dual wield them, and I fully intend to do that. So a bit of extra damage on our double daggers is going to be nice. What else do we have? Mogred Gauntlets of Life. Oh, this is the armor that I was gonna give you before we found Herrick's leather, which, as you can see, has a very similar graphic to the royal leather, but it's different. It's red instead of blue, and it's got some extra... I was gonna say buttons, but surely they can't be buttons. Whatever these shiny-looking studs are, it's got more of those. So it looks a little bit different, which is cool. What else do we have? Cloak of Freedom, resistant to paralysis. Gilded Belt of Life, hit points, hit point regen, and the boots I've already shown. And Gauntlets of Life. More hit point, although sadly I don't think the regen stacks. But extra life is unambiguously good to have. What else do we have for you? We have a Griffin Bow of Infernos. Eventually you will learn how to use a bow. And we'll equip this on you. Gilded Belt of Freedom, resistant to paralysis. Day of Protection, which is one of the spell books which we multi-looted, which you'll eventually be able to learn. The boots we already looked at. Gauntlets of the Sky. Spell points, speed, intellect. Intellect, not relevant. Spell points and speed, very nice to have. Cloak of Life, we've seen this enchantment before, hit point regen. And Sun, Amulet of Earth. So endurance, armor, and hit points. It's nice stuff. Finally for you, we have another bow. Another Griffin bow. This is the highest tier of bow, by the way. Of ice this time. We have a Royal Leather of the Medusa. Resistant to stone. We've got Mogred Gauntlets of the Sky. Spell points, speed, intellect. Amulet of Life. We've seen this enchantment before. Ring of Earth Magic. Excuse me. Ring of Earth Magic. So I don't think any of our other items were boosting Earth Magic. So this is gonna, when we eventually get that spell school, give us a nice bonus for that. And this is the staff that you're gonna be using instead of this. Wizard Staff of Thunderbolts. That's gonna be good. And this is a belt, I guess. You know what? I think I'm gonna resistant to paralysis. You know what? I want you to be resistant to paralysis, so we'll just sell this belt instead. And anything that I'm gonna sell, I'll put in your inventory. In fact, let's quickly sell this stuff before I forget. And I know I'm selling it with a character who doesn't have merchant because, in case you haven't noticed, we have a...
See anything you want?
So we're going to sell it. We're going to get terrible prices. But I don't care.
Thanks a lot.
Because we have nearly 300,000 gold, which came from... well, some of it came directly from multi-looting the Dragon Corpse, because every time you do it, you gain 800 or so gold, and a lot of it also came from selling items that we didn't keep. So yes, those are sold. Let me go through the rest of your stuff. Move your cloak was a cloak of earth. We've already looked at that, and I think we've looked at everything else. We also have a couple spell books. We may not... There's a chance we won't be able to learn these if they're dark magic spells, but I kept them anyway just in case. I've forgotten what the restrictions are. We found, in addition to the equipment, some reagents, which I kept. Occasionally the dragon would drop a reagent, which is a very disappointing thing for a dragon to drop. If you're playing the game legit, and you're only looting him once, and he drops a reagent when he could have dropped an artifact. That would be pretty annoying, but I've got a few of those, so if we want to do some alchemy, that's gonna be nice, I guess. We also have some black potions. Pure intellect, we've got 2 of these. Now, there's an interesting thing here. It says potion power, and this is relevant to other kinds of potions, like potions of healing, which will have an effect of varying strength depending on what its power is. But with these potions, power is irrelevant, because if you read the description, it's gonna give you a constant amount of that attribute. And I'm pretty sure you can only use these once per character. So we've got 2 for intellect. We've got 1 for luck. We've got 3 for might. Haven't given them to the characters yet. I'll give them later once we're ready to actually start playing. For now I wanted to focus on this video, which is artifacts and other gear. And we also found a rejuvenation potion. So in case somebody gets unnaturally aged, we have that in reserve. So with that done, I want to walk back to the start. We'll walk back to the beginning. Now I'm going to make a new save. My first running save. This is going to be the save from which we officially, what I consider to be actually starting the game, because everything we've done so far, yes, we've run around, we've killed a dragon, we've gotten things, but A, a lot of it's been off-screen, and B, a lot of it's been just fundamentally weird and a little immersion breaking. So, next episode is when we're actually gonna start. And honestly, I'm thinking it's time to call this video to a close and just start, you know, mentally preparing ourselves for doing the actual game. Before I close off though, I will say I have talked about it a little bit, but I'll talk about it a little bit more. It was a pretty long process finding all of these artifacts and relics. Just have a little bit more water. It was a pretty long process. It took me multiple sessions over multiple days. 4 days, in fact. So the first day I only found one thing. I only found this thing. The next day I was really lucky. I found 6. The day after that I found 4. So that brings us to 11. And in the final session I found the last 2 things. So it took a while. And while I was finding things, I was also multi-looting things that I didn't keep. Either things that were evil restricted, or things that, like spears for instance. I don't want anyone with a, like any spear wielders in my party, so I didn't keep any of those. And there was one artifact that I found. I won't say which one it is in case it's one of the ones you like, but when I found it, I'm like, this is a bunch of garbage. I am not going to keep it. So even though I multi-looted it and technically could use it, I also said no to that. So I think that happened like 8 or 9 times that I multi-looted an artifact / relic that I didn't keep. It was a long, tedious process of just, as I mentioned, loading, clicking, loading, clicking. I will say though, one thing, and this is a bit of an aside, but one thing that helped me through this process was having played the remake of Diablo 2, which was a game I loved as a kid. But for those of you who don't know, Diablo 2 is an action RPG where you kill monsters and get loot. But the way loot works in that game is that you're always looking for extremely rare things. Like the rarest thing in the game, an artifact called Tyrael's Might, has about a 1 in several 100,000 chance of it dropping from the final boss of the game, which is the guy who has the highest chance of giving it to you. So extremely, extremely low. And there are other things that are more common than that, but still not easy to find, like the high-level runes. So while I was playing Diablo 2, I was spending a lot of time at it, and most of the time I wasn't finding what I wanted, but enough time passes, you will find a jar rune, you will find a bear rune, you will, like the thing I like the most, and this is going to be meaningless to you who don't play Diablo 2, but I found a perfect Herald of Zakrum. So for me to find that, I had to first find the item, and then it is variable in terms of how strong its enchantment is, from 150 to 200%. And I found one that was 200%, and I looked at the odds of that, and I'm like, well, those are some steep odds that I beat. And at that time, I didn't know, because I hadn't done my tests, how low the chance of multi-looting an artifact or relic would be, but I knew it would be a lot easier to do than some of the things I had already done in Diablo 2. So that was something that helped mentally prepare me for this. And who knows, if you're a Diablo 2 fan, it might help you as well if you intend to play this game and if you intend to multi-loot. If nothing else, try farming for Tyrael's Might for 2-3 hours, and then come back to this game, and then you'll realize however long it takes to multi-loot these artifacts or relics, it could be much, much worse. Alright, so I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. Just a bit of a debrief after this strange video, this final preparatory video before we launch into the game properly and start doing quests. So I hope you'll join me for the next video, and indeed for the rest of the series, as we delve into this actual game. And let's look at the map. We're on Emerald Island, and see what else is on this island and what else we need to do. So I hope you'll join me for that. I'm gonna save again. I'm actually gonna make my second slot right about now. I'll eventually have about 5 slots total, but let's just make the first 2 right now. So I'll save now, and I'll join you in the next video. So until then, take care.